Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to another glorious day here on WUFO 1080 AM and Power 96.5 FM. You're listening to the Great Lakes Health Radio program with your host, Francesca Messiah from Kaleida Health, Manager, Workforce Development. Before I even talk about Kaleida, let me just tell you about the title of our show. I think it's important for you to hear the title first. And the title of our show today, we will be talking about the Food as Medicine Conference 2025. And this is part one. So I just wanted to let our listeners know the topic. Kaleida Health, I just want to say Kaleida Health, we are Western New York's largest healthcare system. We're Buffalo General Hospital, Millard Fillmore Suburban, Oishei Children's Hospital, Gates Vascular Institute, Visiting Nursing Association. Our long-term sites include DeGraff in North Tonawanda and High Point right here in Buffalo at the highest point in Buffalo, which is a corner of Main and High. Little geographic information. Kaleida Health employs over 15,000 employees between here and Bradford, Pennsylvania. Between here, meaning Western New York, including Bradford, Pennsylvania. And I just want to read the statement. Kaleida Health does not discriminate, exclude, or treat people differently because of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, disability, sexual orientation, gender identity, or expression, physical appearance, or your source of payment, or your age. I just wanted to make sure everyone knew. So on with our show. It's just very exciting. Our guests, we have two wonderful guests today. Ladies I've been working with, for the past several years, as long as we've been discussing food as medicine. You've heard our guests such as Kelly Cardamone talk about food and nutrition. It's just so important that you understand that relationship or begin to understand. So our guests for today are Elizabeth Metchenika. I don't know. How do I pronounce your last name, Elizabeth?
It is Macnica.
Macnica. I was close. Elizabeth, no, Beth Macnica, and she is the Director of Health and Well-Being at the Buffalo Niagara Medical Campus. And Purina Mohan, who is the program manager of the health and well-being for the Buffalo Niagara Medical Question. Ladies, before we just talk about food as medicine, for those, and many of us don't really know, what is the Buffalo Niagara Medical Campus? How would you define it?
Yes, so we're an innovation district. We're right here located in the Fruit Belt. And so we let Kaleida Health, Roswell, UB, they deliver healthcare research and education. And we're sort of the nonprofit that delivers wraparound services on behalf of not only the employees, patients, and visitors, but also for the surrounding communities. So really, we just want to make the city and this area a better place for everyone to work, live, play, and pray.
Thank you so much. And many of our listeners are familiar with, we know about the Fruit Belt community because WUFO, when it began over 50 years ago, began as a gospel faith-based station on AM. And many of our listeners either attended church in the Fruit Belt community or lived in the community, went to school in the Fruit Belt community, or all three of the above. So I just want our listeners to know exactly what is the Buffalo Niagara Medical Campus. So on to our conversation, Food is Medicine. Food is Medicine Conference 2025, Part 1. I say Part 1 because I believe we have enough information for another show on the Food is Medicine conference. So if you could, please provide a brief overview for the Food is Medicine Conference. What is it, and how many years has the Buffalo Niagara Medical Campus hosted the conference?
Yes, and thank you, Francesca, for having us today. We're really excited. So yeah, basically we launched the Food as Medicine Symposium during COVID, really in response to what we were seeing and hearing in the community. We know that there were already really deep cracks in our health and our food system, but the people that were most affected were hit the hardest only to have those issues worsen. So, in response to that, we hosted a virtual meeting on Zoom on a Saturday, and we were able to engage about 100 people online. So, that really showed that we had something and people were interested. And, really, the Food as Medicine conference addresses the misalignment between our health and our food system. And there's a few things kind of baked into that. So, we have rising rates of chronic disease. Over 60% of Americans live with one or more chronic conditions, most of which are preventable, treatable, and even can be sometimes reversed using nutrition and lifestyle. Yet our healthcare costs are skyrocketing, and many times our providers are just not receiving the education about how effective these nutrition and lifestyle interventions can be. So it's not often practiced in our healthcare system. And then kind of baked into that is also this growing food insecurity issue. So we have millions of households, many with children that have empty cupboards. And we know certain neighborhoods in Buffalo have food insecurity rates upwards of 42%. And for context, the national average is about 13%. And so our healthcare system doesn't pay much attention to food, and our food system doesn't pay much attention to health. And so Food as Medicine is really at the heart of this, where we're bringing the two together. And we really feel that this is the future of healthcare.
Okay. No, you know what? It's not just a future of healthcare. It's a future of life care. Because to me, it's bigger than healthcare. It's about your health. Our listeners, this is about your health. It's about the health of your children, of your family, of your friends. And I know we talk about nutrition, and I mean, we talk about food, and even some of our major grocery stores. Before you check out, trust me, I've had one or two candy bars because I'm waiting there. And what's there? Candy or chips. So I just had to add that in there. Um, you said that it was online. You had over 100 people. Since COVID, have you noticed a growth in participation, or has there been a growth? And who attends the conference? Who's invited?
Yes, good morning, Francesca. Again, thank you for the opportunity. Yes, we have surely noticed a huge growth in participation. We started off, as Beth mentioned, in 2021 with our first conference, which was virtual on a Saturday. It brought in about 18 national speakers. We had culinary medicine, nutritional curriculum that was added to the medical school education, and food insecurity and access for all based on that symposium. And it also resulted in the formation of the Western New York Food as Medicine Coalition and the Gables Institute Food as Medicine curriculum for the UB students. And then in 2022 was our second symposium. The theme was Bridge to Health. We had about 116 people in person and 100 plus virtually. And again, we had national and local speakers that spoke on policy advancement and social determinants of health and culinary medicine. And there was also a proposal for a UB teaching kitchen with the School of Public Health and Health Professions. And in 2023, a third symposium, the theme was Transformative Practices for Health. And we had 180 people join in person and 75 virtually. So as you see, we have been growing over the years. And again, we had more national speakers join us, and we focused on integrity and accountability and transparency within the private food sector, food equity, and lifestyle medicine. 2024, our theme was culture, cuisine, and community, and we had 200 people join in person and 50 virtually. And this year was our biggest and best ever fifth Food as Medicine Symposium. And we had over 250 people in person and about 45 join us virtually. And over the years, we've also seen people joining us from, out of town, from Boston, California, Ohio, Canada, Texas, etc. And in terms of who attends the conference, we've had, from clinicians to community members to registered dietitians, you name it, and they're all there. So we're super excited about how the symposium has grown over the past 5 years.
And just a few comments on that. You just said clinicians and community members.
Mhm.
So I mean, that's almost saying people who have degrees, because clinicians, you have to have a degree and you have to have certification, and community members who also have degrees or may not have degrees. But that's how change is made when it comes to this food as medicine. And also, you mentioned culinary medicine. Can I just say, part two, we're going to focus a lot on culinary medicine because I've never focused on that before, and that's very exciting.
Wonderful. Thank you.
um, so one of the things as I was reading over the information, and the conference is how many days?
So this year, it was a 3-day conference. In the past, as we said, in 2021, we started with 1 day and then we were 2 days. But this year, being our 5th year, it was a 3-day conference.
And that's another thing I thought was amazing. I was like, wait a minute, when did they put all the other days in? But they were all, it just goes to show how the topic has grown. So one of the areas at the conference you talk about food and chronic disease. So is it true that that food can impact chronic disease, which then sometimes translates into emergency room visits? Are you able to talk about food and chronic disease?
Yes, I can talk about it from a perspective as a registered dietitian, but I also can talk about it from my own personal experience. Believe it or not, food is actually the number one cause of disease, death, and disability. There was an article, we know science shows this, and many people at home listening might even know family members who have experienced some of these things. But food is actually the number one cause before tobacco, before alcohol, before sedentary lifestyles or other things that might be considered risky habits to our health. It's actually food. But what I like to take that one step further, though, it's not just what we're eating that's making us sick. I really want people to understand that it's what we're not eating. And so they've actually done research and they've looked at deaths, and they've found that more deaths were actually caused from what people were not eating, what is missing in the diet. And why is that? It's because these foods are protective. They actually protect us against chronic disease and against those emergency room visits. So getting more of those colors, fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, legumes, whole grains, healthy fats, olive oil, fatty fish, those types of things we're just not eating enough of. And we know that, it doesn't help. 70% of our food system is ultra processed foods, but we know 90% of adults aren't meeting our vegetable intake guidelines. 90% of adults aren't meeting the fiber intake guidelines. And so we're losing that protection. And so I really want people to understand that it's not about villainizing the foods that we're eating if we're also getting the good stuff in, because it really can protect us from chronic disease. But unfortunately, our system has been set up. Our food system has been set up for profits and not really for keeping people healthy. And even myself, being an expert and a dietitian in the field, I myself developed a chronic metabolic health condition and learned the power of nutrition and being able to prevent it. So I want people to know that it's not your fault, to not feel shame for any sickness that you might develop or experience, but also know that there's hope and it's very easily treatable and managed using food.
And that's a lot. Something that you said, and you said the cause of you said the number one cause of disease, you said, is food, and it causes, you said disability. I think there were two other things you named with that, right?
Yes, disease, death, and disability.
The 3 Ds.
Yes.
Wow, that's scary. And I know listeners, sometimes people will say it's a green salad, but sometimes in green salads, people will add croutons. They may add like the fried onions. They may add some processed meat, right? Then they'll use a ton of either blue cheese, ranch dressing, any of those heavy salad dressings, even Italian. And I tell you, listeners, one of the simplest things to do, take a flavored vinegar, olive oil, it doesn't matter what the part is, just mix it, put it in a container, add a little black pepper, put some black pepper in there, add some fresh garlic. Take a clove of garlic, crush one, maybe even crush two. And if you want to put a pinch of Italian seasoning, shake it up, put it on that salad and see if it tastes any better. Eventually, we want you to remove the croutons and the cheese and so the crunchy onions, some things that you think are good. But, it's baby steps. It's baby steps that Food is Medicine is talking about. Am I correct? Is that correct?
Yes, exactly. And that's what is so important. Culinary medicine, like you mentioned, the joy of cooking, but also the science of nutrition. And if you like crunchy in your salad, maybe instead of croutons, you can use some slivered almonds or nuts or seeds just to get that crunch factor. But yeah,
or celery or
yes.
carrots. I mean, there's plenty of things, cucumbers, plenty of things that are crunchy, and but anyway, we just kind of got it. That's okay. That will come under our part 2 where we'll be talking about culinary medicine.
Sneak peek.
We have about 12 minutes left in the show, and one of the things I want to talk about, which is how I really became involved, is 40 Days to Wellness. What is it? How did you even think of this program? And where was it held? And will it be held again? I'm sorry, I'm too excited.
Thank you, Francesca, and thank you for being part of the 40 Days to Wellness program. So this was our pilot program. It was years in the making. We finally launched it last year in August and September. Again, it was a 6-week program. It's our cornerstone initiative that pairs nutrition and mindfulness with community building. We engaged a lot of BIPOC-owned businesses, local businesses. The participants received meals for 6 weeks. So 10 meals each week, medically tailored meals were delivered to them. We also had cooking classes that was offered in a hybrid fashion. So virtually they could join from their home and also join in person. Mindfulness workshops once a week, dietitian coaching, nutrition workshops. They learned about how to read a nutrition label, eating on a budget, things like that. And they were all culturally rooted and built on trust. So again, we were super excited to work with local partners like Urban Fruits and Veggies, the Mindful Institute, the Queen City Couriers, who actually delivered the meals on via bike. Diet ID was a platform where we used their dietitians and also had weekly challenges about water intake and fruit and vegetable intake. And so, yeah, it was amazing. And in terms of the results and the outcomes that we saw, we have 500 participants actually wanted to take part in the program, but we had a grant from Highmark for this study, and we were able to accommodate 108 participants. 97% of them reported, increased physical health. 100% of them said they gained knowledge in healthy eating. 90% said they improved their mental health. 84% said they increased their cooking skills. We also learned to cook with water, and you don't need to cook with oil. And that was the most engaging part of the program. And 78% of them said they sustained their mindfulness habits. So we were really happy with the outcomes. They were statistically significant. And we really hope to offer that in the future. So stay tuned on the next time we offer that.
Yeah, and I want to say you also, after the mindfulness, you also have kept us engaged with free exercise classes there on the Buffalo Niagara Medical Campus, correct?
That's right. So we offer fitness programming through the year. We every 2 months we change it up. We have had dance therapy, yoga, chakra yoga. We've had boot camps. So all kinds of fitness workshop, and all these are offered at no cost to everyone in the community. So please join us, and we are working on our calendar for 2026 now. And our website, bnmc.org/health and wellbeing, will have all the information.
Okay, 2 things. What is, for our listeners, BIPOC? What is BIPOC? Didn't you say that you reach out to the BIPOC community?
Yes, yes. So our program supported Black, Indigenous, and people of color. So these are entrepreneurs in the community that we partnered with. So we truly believe that in order to really ultimately reach health equity, there's a lot that has to happen in the economy and putting wealth back into our businesses that are based right here in the city.
Thank you. And then, and now, yes, I was a participant. Kaleida Health, we received a email that came through. And didn't we also have every week a check-in with someone you could talk to about how you were feeling about the Wasn't that part of it as well?
Yes, so we try to keep the participants engaged through the program. We had a private Facebook group where everyone could communicate.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, we had reminders. We also had an in-person orientation, and you could speak to the registered dietitian. So we had a lot of touch points where you could stay engaged throughout the program.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also and something else that for the cooking was every week. Those who know me know I've never been a big cook, but I have to tell you, after this program, I was not afraid to season. I used to really be afraid of seasoning. Um, it was wonderful because if you couldn't make the class, the cooking class, it was partnership. So we were at the state-of-the-art kitchen over at D'Youville College. There was also someone, I don't know, I forgot her name, and she walked us through the cooking and if class. And when sometimes you had your own space, sometimes you shared a space, or if you weren't there, you could do it from your own home. They gave you a bag of groceries, fresh groceries, everything from green pepper to garlic. I now swear by garlic, and that's why I mentioned adding garlic to the salad dressing. And it was just, oh gosh, it was just a mind opener. And you were able, it was like being a kid. You were able to take the leftovers home. The leftovers you made in class. I remember there were oat bars. So it was just the most it was just a real mind expansion program in terms of your health and how much better you felt, going through these 40 days, and meeting with people. There was a Facebook page, so you were able, if you had a struggle, your struggle was not alone. You weren't alone in the struggle. It was somebody else's struggle, and you could bring it to class. It was just 40 days to wellness. I cannot say enough about it.
Thank you. And it was Chef Jessica Altman from Garden Fresh Foodie.
Okay. Yeah, it was. Okay. Yes. Yes. Yeah, it was just wonderful. And then, well, I know we only have a couple minutes left, literally. So anything in part one, we have not discussed, because part two, we're going to focus a lot on culinary medicine. And just to talk, this was like a brief overview. We didn't get into detail talking about the conferences and some of what you feel are important takeaways. We didn't talk about any of that. So that's why we're going to have a part two. But before we close today's program, is there anything else that each of you would like to say? We have about a minute. We have about a minute and a half left.
Sure, yes. And this has been so wonderful, and I'm so excited that you love the program, Francesca, and we're hoping to bring it back. But the only other thing that I wanted to share was that Purnima mentioned the Western New York Food is Medicine Coalition from our first year, and that is still going strong. We have 400 members, 180 organizations, and what we're working on right now is actually sharing resources in the community, especially for the month of November with SNAP benefits. So we have a resource where you can find all of the fresh markets, the mobile markets, pay-as-you-can cafes, pantries all throughout our region. So we can share that out. I don't know if there's like show notes or anything for listeners, but we can share that resource for food access.
Yep, and they're on our website as well, like I mentioned earlier. And just be on the lookout for all the fitness programming and the wellness workshops that we offer every month. And I just wanted to say our focus is also moving from food as medicine to lifestyle medicine. And again, food as medicine is not a trend. It's not a pilot, not a gadget. its movement and daily practice to restore food to its rightful place in health and healing. And we need to build systems together, partnerships, and culture that makes this all possible.
And I just want to say, food is medicine. We've been working on that area 400 years. It was when we just ate, when animals ate ate what was on the land, when we cooked without preservatives. So we know we can do it again, to go back to that, because as a country, as a people, we have done that. And now, it's fast food, processed food. Does it taste good? Hey, yeah, it does sometimes. But what does it do to us? And so on that note, I just have part 2, culinary medicine and food is medicine resources. And we can really, again, talk about the different resources on our part 2, which will probably, hopefully within the next few months, next few months. And I want to thank Beth, Director Beth, I'll let you say your last name.
Macnica.
Beth Macnica, Director of Health and Wellbeing, Buffalo Niagara Medical Campus, and Parima Mohan, Program Manager, Health and Wellbeing, Buffalo Niagara Medical Campus. Listeners, I want to thank you for listening. Stay tuned because we have part 2. I'm Francesca Messiah, Manager, Workforce Development, Kaleida Health. Thank you for listening. See you in 2 seconds. And now on to part 2. Welcome to the second half of the Great Lakes Health Radio program here on Power 96.5 FM, WUFO AM, 1080 AM, or you might be listening through one of the streaming services. So good morning to everyone. I like to talk about a few topics because they affect our life. What is that? What we eat and our heart. If your heart isn't beating, you're just not here. So today's topic is called How Healthy is Your Heart? Well, we're going to be talking about your heart of your loved ones. We're also going to be talking about heart disease. And we also have on our program a survivor of I'll let him tell you the correct medical term, but it was a heart attack. It was a bad one, and he survived. So our guests for today are Dr. Fred Archer. Good morning, Dr. Archer. How are you?
I am fantastic, Fran. Always good to hear you.
Oh, great. And Dr. Archer is a clinical assistant professor of pediatrics in the Division of General Pediatrics with the Jacobs School of Medicine and Biomedical Sciences. Also attending physician at Niagara Pediatrics and Broadway Pediatrics, and also an associate dean of admissions at Jacobs School of Medicine and Biomedical Sciences. Do you sleep, Dr. Archer?
Only occasionally, like I just had a nap like 5 seconds ago.
Okay, thank you. And our second guest, again, not a stranger to the show, and that is Dr. George Matthews. Good morning, Dr. Matthews. How are you?
I am great, Miss Messiah. It's always a pleasure working with you and Dr. Archer.
Oh, thank you. And Dr. Matthews is the Chief of Service here at Buffalo General Medical Center, Kaleida Health, Department of Medicine. And the reason for today's show, I know I tried to do this before, but the reason for today's show, not only are both of these physicians of color, because they are, one, Dr. Matthews is a cardiologist, as I mentioned. Oh, I didn't say he was he is a cardiologist. And also Dr. Archer is a pediatrician. What is the connection, you might say? The connection is that Dr. Matthews who's a cardiologist, and Dr. Archer is the one who had the near fatal heart attack. So I said, let me bring the two together and let's have someone who actually had a heart attack with a conversation with the cardiologist. So starting out, Dr. Matthews, what is heart disease? And if you have heart disease, what's the likelihood of having a heart attack?
Well, thank you, Ms. Messiah. Let me begin by saying heart disease or cardiovascular disease, which is the broad term, describes the process where there is an issue which affects either the arteries of the heart, the muscle of the heart, or the lining of the heart, or the valves of the heart. Now, to put it in perspective, the heart's main job is to pump blood carrying nutrients and oxygen to the various organs. When the heart cannot pump sufficient blood, then we may feel fatigued, we may feel weak, we may have chest discomfort, we may have a whole host of issues. The important aspect is to remember that we're trying to maintain the ability of the heart to pump blood sufficient to satisfy the needs of the body. The most common form of heart disease, the one that we often describe as causing heart attack, is one in which we reference coronary artery disease, or disease involving the arteries of the heart itself. When these arteries develop a blockage or narrowing as a consequence of the buildup of fat or cholesterol within the blood vessel, then that can lead to chest discomfort, shortness of breath, chest pain that may eventually result in a heart attack or myocardial infarction. The important aspect is that we want to prevent that from occurring. Now, one of the things that we want to consider is the likelihood of having this develop, the likelihood of having heart disease. If an individual has buildup of that plaque within the blood vessels of the heart, then there is an increased likelihood of heart attack or damage to the heart muscle. Other issues which may affect the heart as a consequence of valve problems, or issues which may be a consequence of abnormal heart rhythms, also can provide for heart attacks. But the most common manifestation is that of the buildup of atherosclerosis, or hardening of the arteries, you may have heard, and that buildup may compromise the pumping capacity of the heart and eventually potentially result in heart attack damage.
Wow. And none of this happens overnight, right?
Not at all. Interestingly enough, this occurs after we're born and we start eating foods, we start living a lifestyle. The things that may contribute to the development of heart disease: high blood pressure, cholesterol buildup, as I've referenced earlier, tobacco use, diabetes, an unhealthy diet, one that's high in fat, may also contribute. Physical inactivity, and we often think that we are getting enough activity just doing our daily activities around the house. Not enough. We need to have more. The American Heart Association suggests approximately 150 minutes of exercise per week. Again, one of the things that we don't like to think about is obesity, or the buildup of or excessive weight, which may be a manifestation of some of the other aspects that I've discussed, specifically dietary imprudence, eating those foods which may be not the most healthy, foods high in salt, sugar, fat, and things that we don't think about: alcohol use, which may raise the blood pressure and contribute to the development of heart disease. Lastly, sleep disorders, and most importantly, or equally importantly, family history, because we don't think about it, but all too often, having family members who have had heart disease, first-degree family members, meaning father, mother, brother, or sister, may confer an increased risk of heart disease.
Yes. And yeah, no, that's so true. I remember years ago having a friend who was telling me how heart disease had killed all the men. Many of the men in his family had died from heart disease, from a heart attack. And I don't know, he was almost 50. And I said thinking to myself, what does that have to do with him? Because he seemed perfectly healthy. Didn't know, although I didn't know they had diabetes and high blood pressure. I didn't know that. And don't you know, within a couple of days, I had a massive coronary and died.
Very,
So, yeah.
yeah, no, that's very important. The way I often look at it is if you have a first degree relative, parent, brother, or sister, and if it was a man and they had that heart attack before the age of 55, then you are at risk. If it's a if the mother or the sister had her heart illness before the age of 65, then your risk is higher as well. Now, family history matters because genetics can influence how our body handles cholesterol and fats, what our blood pressure is, and the potential likelihood of developing diabetes. So we have to take all of these into account and realize that many of the risk factors we can address, but genetics we can't. So we have to do everything we can to affect those risk factors that we can have some ability to modify.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Matthews. Dr. Archer, and you did have a heart attack, right?
That is correct.
So I know, like, a lot of times I always have to go back to Fred Sanford. I guess it just ages me more and more and more. And when Fred Sanford would grab his heart, he'd say, Elizabeth, Elizabeth.
This is the big one, Elizabeth.
This is the big one. Oh, so you had a heart attack, and did you experience any of the chest pains or any of the symptoms that we see on television? Because sometimes that television appears to be reality. So did you have anything like that? And was heart disease in your family?
So, in answer to your first question, I did not. We were sitting down, and this is such a Buffalo story. We were watching a Bills game, and I remember the last thing I recall is lift my hands up to cheer as we scored a touchdown, and then I blinked, and the next thing I knew, I was in a hospital bed. So I kind of checked out for a minute there. I do not recall any kind of chest pain, anything like that leading up to it. Now, that morning, we participated in a function where we were doing some stationary bike riding, and I could be in better shape, but I wasn't pushing myself crazy. So I wasn't, I was a little tired, but not, oh my God, I'm fatigued. Oh my God, I can't move anything. And so it definitely kind of came out of the blue from my understanding. But when I was talking to the cardiologist and talking with my family and doing some, discussion afterwards, I knew that my father had had a heart attack when he was in his mid 50s, when I was much younger, close to the age that I am now. His was due to a blockage. He had cholesterol. He had an atherosclerotic plaque. He had to go through a process called angioplasty to get that all cleared out. And so I've always been kind of mindful of my cholesterol. But my heart attack was actually due to what's called an arrhythmia, an irregular beating of the heart. People have heard of AFib. That's kind of in that kind of category. Mine was due to something called ventricular tachycardia, where it just started beating ridiculously fast and out of sync, out of rhythm. And upon discussion with my family, that is something that had been in my family history. But it was occurred when that person was a child. So it wasn't thought to be something that would occur in the adult population. So that's why when Dr. Matthews said, know that family history, know that family history, know that family history, it is critically important for people to talk about these things. And we know back in the day, folks didn't talk about that. Oh, it's not polite. We don't need to know. People are very secretive. It is crucial for you to know your family history because it can actually save your life and the lives of your children and other members of your family. It's very important. So we did a lot of discussion and found out that these arrhythmias did happen to run in our family. But all these different symptoms can present a lot of different ways. That traditional crushing chest pain is one way that heart attacks can present, most definitely. And it is relatively common to present that way. But in other ways, it's just, as Dr. Matthews said, I'm just really feeling, I have no energy. I'm really feeling out of breath. I'm really suddenly feeling, lightheaded. And I just can't really get my thoughts together straight because my heart's not beating properly. It's not getting oxygen through the system to my brain and all of those things. So it was an interesting experience. I'll tell you that.
Oh no, I trust me. I recall. And Dr. Matthews, how common is if someone has the arrhythmia How common is that for patients? Is it any more common for that type of a heart attack than a heart attack where you suddenly have tightness in the chest?
Well, that's a great, great question. Let me put it into perspective because Dr. Archer eloquently described a manifestation that unfortunately we don't appreciate as often, mostly because people don't survive that event. And so we never are able to get a better understanding. But it is all too common for individuals to experience that abnormal rhythm that Dr. Archer described. And unfortunately, they're feeling fine 1 minute and then they collapse and they've been deemed to have a heart attack and died. And we did not appreciate that they had that particular symptom as a first manifestation. So yes, Francesca, it is more common than we care to admit. And that's all the more reason, as Dr. Archer described, that we've got to have a excellent understanding of what our risk is for heart disease.
Mm-hmm. And that brings me to the next question. Because something you just mentioned, you're talking about survival versus non-survival. I have to say Melissa Archer, because Melissa Archer, Dr. Archer's wife, who is a nurse practitioner, knew about CPR. Dr. Matthews, what is CPR?
Well, those three letters, cardiopulmonary resuscitation, they entail the manner in which when someone is deemed to be unresponsive and they may have suffered a heart attack, that we can assist in restoring the pumping of blood by doing chest compressions. And unfortunately, not enough of us know how to do that and do it appropriately. Dr. Archer was extremely fortunate in as much as his wife has an excellent understanding and knew how to do it and do it appropriately, sufficiently so that he was able to not only survive, but to receive the subsequent care that is necessary. So when someone collapses, the American Heart Association has a great course that we can all go through to say, how do we get this person or how do we attend to this person in a fashion to maintain their circulation until we have appropriate additional medical resources available, until the ambulance or EMT arrives to assist us. But in Dr. Archer's case, and we cannot say this enough, we all should have a spouse or
a friend,
a partner such as
somebody
his who can provide that care immediately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I'm going to ask Dr. Archer, where does CPR training take place? But if you see someone has collapsed, is it, which do you do first, CPR or, I hate to say those paddles, the defibrillator, the things you sometimes see on the walls? And what exactly, let me ask, what are those things you sometimes see in a building and you place the paddles? I mean, is that just as important as CPR, or do you do the CPR first if you see someone?
Well,
and what, yeah.
Yeah, and that's an excellent question. Again, when someone collapses, the most important thing is to determine if they are breathing, if they have an airway, if they have a circulation, do they have a pulse. Once we establish that, then we can, or the absence of that, then we can begin CPR. Unfortunately, even though the AEDs, those devices are available in many public places, to be very frank with you, when someone collapses, they are not available. And Dr. Archer is an excellent example. He collapsed at home, and fortunately, his wife did the right thing in providing CPR. if they had to wait for EMTs or paddles to come, that would have been catastrophic. In most places, there are not those paddles readily available. If someone collapses on the street, an individual who is present can start CPR, ask for other bystanders to call 911, ask for other bystanders to get the AED, which can identify if there is an abnormal rhythm and provide the shock. But the important thing is not to wait to begin the process to establish, is the person breathing? Do they have a circulation? If they don't, then begin CPR and marshal those additional resources to allow the individual to survive.
Thank you. Dr. Archer, CPR training. I know that you were trying to get more people involved with CPR training. Where does it take place? And let's say someone is doing CPR training on one of those, for lack of better words, dummies. Should you be sweating after? I mean, how do you know you're doing it properly, Dr. Archer?
Those are all great things. One thing I want to add on there to emphasize, to just kind of tangent off what Dr. Matthews said, arrests at home are very dangerous, and only about 1 in 10 do well. And a lot of that is because people do not start CPR soon enough. And more importantly, people see CPR, they watch TV, and there's the whole there's a combination of breathing with the compressions, and the compression where you're putting your hands right on the chest and pumping up and down. You are replacing the person's heart in that instance. And that is the important thing. Don't get that process started as soon as possible. So if somebody drops and collapses, you ain't got no heartbeat, boom, you're doing compressions. The joke you hear in CPR training is, if you are not sweating, you haven't done it right. If you haven't broken the chest bone or some ribs, you haven't done it right. And that's where a lot of people really got to get concerned and scared. They don't want to hurt their friend. They don't want to hurt their loved one. They don't want to hurt that relative by, I'm pushing on their chest too hard. Push on their chest hard. Because if they can complain about their ribs being sore afterwards, then they're alive and you did your job right. Okay. And yes, you should be feeling out of breath and sweating after you do that. Because like I said, you're replacing the heart. And the numbers to keep in mind, people want to know, well, how often should you do it? How fast should you do it? 100 beats a minute, 100 beats a minute, 100 beats a minute. And people want to know, well, how do I remember that? There are 3 songs I will give you, depending on the genre of music you like, that will give you 100 beats a minute. Good old-fashioned Staying Alive, which I think is kind of ironic that the song is called Staying Alive, but Staying Alive will get you 100 beats a minute. If you want to be a little bit more fancy, Beyonce, Crazy in Love, that'll get you 100 beats a minute. If you want to get a little bit more modern, Kendrick Lamar, Not Like Us, 100 beats a minute.
So 100 beats a minute, does that mean you can't? Okay, so if you don't have that song,
so when you just go with that beat, dun, 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 dun,
and press as hard as you can.
That beat is 100 times a minute. And so if you're pushing down on the beat with that, you'll be providing 100 beats a minute. And that's what a struggling heart's going to need just to try and make it, And CPR training can be done anywhere, and it can be done in a lot of places with a lot of groups. I myself, do hands-only CPR teaching. I'll go to schools, I'll go to your church, I'll go to your community center. The American Heart Association offers training, and it will give a location of where you can do that. The American Red Cross does this type of training. The vast majority, there's organizations through the medical school and through Buffalo General, through Children's Hospital, where people are coming out and will come to your organization and do this type of training for you. And the key thing is, it's not just the CPR I'm really pushing. It's that hands-only CPR, where you're not worrying about getting the breathing in conjunction with that. We're just talking about keeping the heart going as long as you can until additional help arrives, because that can make the difference between A, that person just being here or not, and B, them having some kind of functionality afterwards. That hands-only CPR is no joke. And the fact that, and we also say, anybody can learn that. We teach it to elementary school kids. Now, it might be a little bit harder, for a first grader to do that, but it's better than nothing. But once you get to around 6th, 7th grade, all of a sudden you can put that weight behind there. You can make a difference. And if you tell a kid, pump on the heart, call 911, that's all you need to get that process started. And that can make the difference. That can make all the difference.
Yeah. Because in your case, I think that's what your son did, right?
Yeah,
Called
my wife,
911?
my wife started doing CPR. She
Right.
yelled at him to get the phone
Right.
open. He had 911 going.
Right.
And the what happened to me is the way the system is supposed to work.
Supposed to
My
work,
wife
right.
started doing CPR, doing compressions. My son got 911 on the line. 911 responded immediately because, as fate would have it, when the call went out, my neighbors down the street are part of the local fire department. So they mobilized because they saw, oh, I know that address. And they came into our house, and my wife was able to get support immediately. And they were able to call ahead to the hospital. So when I got there, they were prepared to handle what was coming in. And it was pretty bad. You want to talk about those automated external defibrillators to get your heart going. I got shocked 6 times. My heart was not doing well. Okay. Yeah, that's not normal. That's not normal at all. The fact that I'm sitting here talking to y'all is literally a miracle and a blessing that I thank my wife for and my kids for every day, every single day. And my chest was sore for most of it. Don't tell me no dad jokes. I was messed up. Okay. But I was alive to complain about it. I was alive to feel that. So that's all the difference.
And you're live for the interview. Starting with Dr. Matthews, closing remarks, and then Dr. Archer, closing remarks.
This has been a great discussion, and I appreciate Dr. Archer's comments because he saw it firsthand. Let me just say that there are differences between symptoms in men and women, and just so we appreciate that. Men have commonly experienced chest discomfort when they have a heart attack. Shortness of breath, sweating, lightheadedness, nausea, vomiting, shortness of breath. That's what we see commonly in men and women as well. But women oftentimes may experience more atypical symptoms: shortness of breath, unusual fatigue, nausea, indigestion. They may get a little bit of dizziness. They may get the symptoms that we don't often associate with heart attack, but for all intents and purposes may represent significant heart disease. So it may not sound the typical chest pain or a collapse that Dr. Archer described, but those other symptoms may herald the presence of heart disease. Thank you, Ms. Messiah.
And one more quick question, Dr. Matthews. If someone is experiencing this, tell their primary care doctor, and then they'll give them the name of a cardiologist. How would that work? Absolutely.
And we're blessed that if someone is experiencing symptoms that are significant by virtue of either chest discomfort or the like, then call the primary care physician, and the primary care physician will make a determination of whether they should come into their office or go directly to the emergency department or seek urgent medical attention. But the important thing is to get a medical professional to make a evaluation. And that can be initially with their primary care physician or in the emergency department.
Thank you. Dr. Archer, minute and a half. What are your final comments?
Minute and a half, no pressure. Okay. So first thing is, I will definitely say to everybody, know your family history. And if there is something, talk to your primary care doctor immediately. You don't need to wait for symptoms till you actually get yourself checked out. And if there is a family history, especially not just of that cholesterol buildup in the plaques and the traditional things, but arrhythmias, irregular heartbeats, talk to your physician, and they can direct you to the proper place to get screened, to get that EKG going. And so that can happen even in my realm, the pediatric world, because a lot of times kids will have these irregular heartbeats, these irregular rhythms, these valve problems, and that can be picked up earlier, so you can do something about it earlier. So early detection, if you know there's a family history, is always huge. And I can not overemphasize learning hands-only CPR enough. That is something that anybody can learn to do. Somebody drops in the street and you are not just standing there taking a video. You are involved in helping that person. You are involved in that process that can make a difference between that person going home to their family or going to the funeral home. And we would prefer going home to your family. So that's definitely where I would go. Make sure that you know what to do, because if you know something, you're not paralyzed in that instance. you can be effective in that instance. And that is how people survive. Too many people get scared and panic in the moment. And you need to have that kind of mental clarity in that moment to realize I have the ability to do something. I have the ability to do something. And so if you go through it, talk to other people about your experience. If one other person hears that story and they do something, then that story is worthwhile.
And I just have to say, my last comment to both of you. So, okay, I think someone in my family, like directly, has had an irregular heartbeat. Does that mean I should go make an appointment to see a cardiologist to check my heart out?
I wouldn't say no.
I mean, you that's what the beauty of doing the show. Sometimes it makes you realize what is in your family. Oh, okay.
The worst thing that happens is, well, you find out that your heart's fine and everything's great. And the best thing that happens is you find out that there is a problem and you get help early.
Okay. Well, Dr. Matthews and Dr. Archer, I want to thank you for bringing that awareness to me. And I want to thank you for the great information you have shared with our listeners, and hopefully have making a difference in their lives, the lives of our family, and most important, the lives of those in our community. So I want to thank you both for being our guests this morning on the Great Lakes Health Radio program. And I just want to remind our listeners, in next week, you'll hear from my esteemed colleague, Cindy Bass from Erie County Medical Center. And God be willing, I'll be back with you in 2 weeks. Thank you. Have a wonderful day, and go Bills.